afternoon. I'm Peter.
I'm Isaac.
I'm Riley.
I'm Callum.
And we're YTM Consulting, and we're here today on behalf of Leith Wheeler Investment Council.
Who is Leith Wheeler and what do they do? Leith Wheeler is an investment council that invests on behalf of private clients, institutionals, endowments, pension funds, and various indigenous communities. They invest in equities and fixed income, building portfolios for long-term growth by following a value investing approach. Now, looking at some of their mission, vision, and values, Leith Wheeler is very well known in the industry as one of Canada's largest independent employee-owned wealth managers. Leith Wheeler is dedicated to conducting themselves with integrity, diligence, and at times a contrarian approach to investing. Leith Wheeler is also involved in various social initiatives, such as the co-founding of the PMF program at UBC. Now, looking at some of their current structures and strategies, Leith Wheeler has a functional organization structure with an individual team for fixed income, portfolio management, and equities. Based on an interview with an associate portfolio manager at Leith Wheeler, they have a centralized decision-making in each function, with people at the top making all the big decisions. Now, today we're talking to you because you have come to us about the international expansion of Leith Wheeler. Today, we believe that Leith Wheeler should expand to Tokyo, Japan. Leith Wheeler should expand through a joint venture with an established Japanese wealth management firm. There's some key considerations that we want to bring to your attention today. Firstly, we are struggling to understand what organization structure to implement to be able to internationalize. Secondly, currently Leith Wheeler lacks knowledge investing in the TYO, the Tokyo Stock Exchange, and various Japanese bond markets, and these are crucial to be able to succeed in the wealth management industry in Japan. Lastly, there's a lack of understanding with regard to how Japanese and Canadian cultures differ, and that's very important considering we're going to a different country to operate in business.
Now I will continue by exploring the external environment through a PESTLE framework. Starting with the political environment, Japan focuses on overcoming financial literacy. Retirement planning and safeguarding wealth long-term is a driving factor in the investment industry within Japan. Japan is actively trying to drive wealth management firms to aid in the intergenerational wealth transfer problem through tailored investment strategies. Now, delving into the economic landscape, there's a large domestic interest in sustainable business. Comparative to Canada, having an average inflation rate of 2.6%, Japan has an increased rate of inflation at 4%. Additionally, the historical return on investments within Japan are significantly lower than Canada at 4.66% annually, inferring economic growth is slower domestically. Regarding the social aspect, Japan's sustainable industry is on a significant incline. As of 2023, Japan has had a declining population growth rate of 0.5% annually, contrasting our growing rate in Canada, inferring that industries that are high demand in Canada may not be as lucrative in Japan. Moving on to the technological environment, this sector poses as a cornerstone in many domestic firms' portfolios. As for the Japanese environment, we recognize their desires to foster sustainable regenerative practice in business while actively implementing ESG theories in decision-making. Continually, ethical sourcing is being actively enforced in domestic business operations. Finally, the legal implications surrounding our entrance are as follows. Immigrating investment firms must approach and be granted the right to conduct business within Japan from the Prime Minister. Wealth management firms must register as financial instruments business operators with the Financial Services Agency to operate according to Japanese.
Now, looking at the cultural differences between Japan versus Canada, we've analyzed three key differences. Firstly, institutional collectivism. In Canada, we have very low institutional collectivism, which means that resources and decision-making are not shared across an organization. However, in Japan, it is quite high, and this is something that we will need to consider going forward. Secondly, gender egalitarianism. Japan has very low gender egalitarianism, which means that women are not respected as highly in society as men are, as opposed to Canada, where there's much more equality. Lastly, performance orientation. In Canada, people are very performance oriented. And so when looking to expand into Japan, we must understand that they're not as performance oriented, and that will need to shape our recommendations going forward.
So far, Leith Wheeler only operates in Canada, but we are proposing you expand internationally into Japan. The main reason Leith Wheeler would want to expand internationally is to capture what are called economies of scope. The motivation stems from capturing new regions, countries, and markets that a company can serve. In this case, serving the Japanese investment management industry. Leith Wheeler is in the domestic stage of international development, but we believe they should enter the international stage and go multi-domestic, where they would enter a new country and have a separate international division from the domestic division. With Leith Wheeler expanding into Japan, it is crucial to understand what global strategy and structure they must adapt to the forces for global integration and national responsiveness. Since this is a service company, all the practices cannot be standardized because each location has different regulatory frameworks that firms need to adapt to. Because of this, firms in Japan face medium forces for global integration as there are still many domestic and international competitors. The Japanese investment management industry faces high forces for national responsiveness as firms entering the industry must comply with strict rules and regulations. As outlined by the Japanese Investment Advisors Associations, firms that wish to participate in investment management must first register with the Prime Minister. They must also pay a membership fee of at least 1 million yen, and while operating, they must follow strict rules. Now onto the recommendations. Based on the medium forces for global integration and high forces for national responsiveness, Leith Wheeler should pursue a global geographic structure and multi-domestic strategy when expanding to Japan. This would look like this. Now, their global geographic structure would divide each geographic region into a division that would report to the CEO. This would include a Canadian division and a Japanese division and other countries in the future if they wanted to expand further. Each of Leith Wheeler's divisions would have control over its functions. For example, the Japanese division would have control over the fixed income, equities, and portfolio management functions. This structure also puts a heavy emphasis on decentralized decision-making, which Leith Wheeler will have to adapt to instead of their current centralized decision-making.
Now, looking to our second recommendation, our investment strategy and social initiatives. Japanese people are typically quite risk-averse when investing, and some even see investing in the stock market as gambling. So we want to make portfolios that are much more safe and have much more fixed income as opposed to equities. Additionally, Japanese people are likely to want to invest in Japanese companies as opposed to Canadian companies. So we need to figure out getting employees who are much more well-versed in the Japanese markets. And thirdly, when looking at some of these social initiatives, we want to give back to the Japanese community like Leith Wheeler gives back to the community in Canada. And so we want to start a program similar to the PMF program at UBC at various top Japanese universities with very strong finance programs. Looking at cultural adaptation, as mentioned before, Japan has very low gender egalitarianism, and Leith Wheeler, we want you to break that. We are going to be paying women equal, despite there being many pay discrepancies in the financial district in Japan. We also want to continue employee ownership when venturing to Japan, as there's very high institutional collectivism, which means sharing the resources and sharing that decision-making, which comes through employee ownership. Lastly, because of a low performance orientation in Japan, we're going to ensure that there are no bonuses or commissions, and that people are paid fair and equal salaries.
The next part of our exploration will be the value creation model for Leith Wheeler. We have previously explored the ideas of the external environment, internal environment, their strategy, and organizational structure, but here we see how they all affect each other. To continue, I will be talking about their successful execution strategy and their ability to attract clients through appealing value proposition, as well as their ability to attract top talent through their employee ownership, and how that affects value creation, where they derive social value through their ability to give back to the communities through initiatives similar to the Portfolio Management Fund program and their efforts in minimizing gender inequality with regard to unequal pay, which create economic value for our clients as a result of continued investment success. And finally, we see how this all works as a giant flow through the feedback loop.
This is an implementation plan for Leith Wheeler's recommendations. Firstly, we want to find a partner for a joint venture. Next, we want to meet all the compliance and regulatory obligations to expand. Additionally, we want to enter the Japanese market. Also, we want to build a client base consisting of mainly Canadian expats. And lastly, we want to generate stable returns and continue to grow internationally. Leith Wheeler has to navigate a few crucial risks to have successful expansion into Japan. Firstly, they must eliminate any culture divide issues within the firm and through the joint venture. Some of these issues consist of lack of respect for employees for being partially Canadian owned, gender egalitarianism, and the trouble adopting to Japanese norms. To mitigate these issues, we will be using a geocentric approach to hire Japanese talent into the firm. We also recommend establishing dedicated cultural relations within the firm, staffed by the blend of Japanese and Canadian professionals. This initiative will foster a workplace culture that responds to the value of both Canadian and Japanese employees. We also recommend adopting a change management strategy that leverages the power of influence in both directions, top-down leadership guidance, and bottom-up employee feedback. The approach ensures smoother transitions and more adaptable and resilient workplace culture. Additionally, Leith Wheeler also faces the risk of economic recession in Japan, which could impact investment returns and client confidence. To mitigate this, we recommend diversifying portfolios, emphasizing low-risk strategies, and maintaining transparent communication with clients. This approach will help build resilience, retain trust, and ensure long-term feasibility. Next, and last, a crucial risk Leith Wheeler faces is not being able to differentiate himself in a new Japanese market. To mitigate this, we recommend additionally targeting Canadian expats whose unique financial needs like cross-border investing and tax planning align with Leith Wheeler's expertise. This builds trust in the community and generates loyal client base through word of mouth and helping them stand out and establish a strong foothold in Japan. These are 3 key performance indicators for Leith Wheeler. Firstly, we want to successfully navigate finding a joint venture partner and meet all legal compliance issues. Next, we want to capture 20% market share of all Canadian expats residing in Japan. And lastly, we want to outperform the Nikkei 225 on average by 100 basis points year over year.
Now to reiterate, Leith Wheeler is looking to expand their operations to Tokyo, Japan. Doing so through adopting a global geographic structure, a revised investment strategy and social initiatives, and through a cultural adaptation plan. And this will all be facilitated through a joint venture with an established Japanese wealth management firm. We thank you for your time today, and we know this will be successful.